There's something haunting in the air tonight, a whisper of dread, a chill that lingers just beyond the edge of sight. Can you feel it? The shadow of the Nazgûl stretches long and dark across the lands of Middle-earth, their spectral forms cutting through the mist like blades. These are not mere riders in the night. They are Sauron's most feared servants, bound to his will, their very existence a testament to the darkness that once ruled this world. And tonight, their journey begins anew. Where are you listening from, and what hour has settled over your corner of the world? Let us know in the comments below, because as the Nazgûl ride forth, their story becomes ours to share, a tale woven into the quiet moments before sleep claims us. Imagine standing on the edge of a forgotten road, the wind carrying a sound like distant screams. The Nazgûl are coming. Their mission is simple, yet terrible, to reclaim the One Ring, to snuff out the last flickers of hope in Middle-earth. But their path is anything but straightforward. This isn't just a hunt. It's a test of loyalty, of power, of the very essence of their cursed existence. Once kings, now wraiths, they are caught between the world they once ruled and the darkness that consumed them. Their whispers carry the weight of centuries, their presence enough to turn the bravest heart to ice. And as they ride, the land itself seems to wither in their wake. This is more than a story of pursuit. It's a descent into the depths of fear, a journey that will take us from the mist-shrouded ruins of Angmar to the fiery plains of Mordor. The Nazgûl's travels are etched into the very fabric of Middle-earth, their footsteps echoing long after they've passed. So settle in, close your eyes, and let the darkness envelop you. For tonight, we walk beside the Ringwraiths, tracing their path through the shadows, unraveling the secrets of their cursed ride. The air hums with anticipation. The hunt begins. The ruins of Arnor lie still under the pale moonlight, broken towers jutting like skeletal fingers from the earth. Here, the Nazgûl move as shadows within shadows, their presence felt more than seen, a creeping dread that seeps into the dreams of those who slumber in nearby villages. Whispers coil through the empty streets, words half-formed, carrying visions of fire and despair. But among them, Khamûl hesitates. The Easterling Wraith, once a mighty king, now feels the pull of something older than Sauron's command. Beneath the crumbled stones, beneath layers of time and dust, a presence hums. It calls to him, not in words but in pulses, like a heartbeat long silenced, now stirring anew. The others ride onward, relentless in their hunt for the ring. Their loyalty is iron, their wills bound to the Dark Lord's voice. But Kamool lingers at the edge of a sunken tomb, its entrance choked with thorns and shattered relics. What lies buried here? A weapon, a secret, or perhaps a remnant of the world before Sauron's shadow stretched across it. The choice tears at him. To disobey is to risk his very existence, for the Nine are bound as one. Yet to ignore this whisper, this strange and gnawing pull, feels like surrendering the last shred of the man he once was. The wind shifts, carrying the scent of decay and old magic. Far off, a wolf howls, as if sensing the fracture in the night. Khamûl's hand hovers over the hilt of his sword, his unseen gaze fixed on the darkness below. The tomb seems to breathe, its secrets coiled tight, waiting, and in that moment, the Wraith must decide. Will he follow the will of his master, or answer the call of something far older, far more uncertain? The fate of the Nine may hinge on this single, silent choice. The hunt continues, but the shadows are watching. The dead marshes stretch before them like a wound in the earth, a vast expanse of black water and grasping reeds where the air hangs thick with the scent of rot and forgotten sorrow. Kamool's steed falters, its hooves sinking into the mire as the ground shifts treacherously beneath them, as though the land itself resists their passage. The other wraiths follow, their forms flickering like candle flames in the fog, but their silence is heavy, uneasy. Here, the water does not lie still. It murmurs, faces peer up from the depths, pale and bloated, lips moving soundlessly in pleas that will never be answered. The dead of long ago battles, trapped between worlds, their eyes reflecting a light that does not belong to this earth. Kamool feels their gaze like needles against his fleshless spirit. He knows these faces. Some wear the armor of Rune, their features twisted in recognition, men who once fought beneath his banners, now lost to time and shadow. A memory flickers, unbidden, the heat of the sun on his face, the weight of a crown, the taste of wine, and the sound of laughter in a hall that has long since crumbled to dust. The vision is so vivid it staggers him, and for a heartbeat, he is no longer a wraith, but a king, whole and haunted by the future instead of the past. The Witch King's voice cuts through the illusion like a blade. Do not linger. His command is a lash, sharp with warning. The others obey without hesitation, their steeds pressing forward through the muck. But Kamool hesitates. The waters here are not just a grave. They are a mirror reflecting what was, what might have been, and in their depths, something glimmers. A shard of metal, perhaps, or a fragment of stone, carved with runes too ancient, even for the tongues of Mordor. The marshes are old, older than Sauron's dominion, and they whisper secrets to those who dare to listen. The Witch King turns his hooded gaze upon Kamool, and the air grows colder. Impatience radiates from him like heat from a forge. Every second wasted is a second. The ring slips further from their grasp. Yet Kamool does not move. To bend now would be to surrender the last flicker of his will, to become nothing more than a hollow vessel for his master's wrath. But the marshes have shown him something the others cannot see. A thread of fate, thin but unbroken, leading not toward the ring, but away from it, toward something buried, something waiting. The water ripples. A hand, skeletal and clad in rusted mail, breaks the surface as if reaching for him. It clutches not a weapon, but a key. The decision hangs in the air, heavier than the mist. Will Kamool follow his orders and rejoin the hunt, or will he reach into the depths and seize the forgotten truth that calls to him? The marshes hold their breath. The dead watch, and the Witch King's patience wears thinner than the veil between worlds. The water ripples as Kamool's gauntleted fingers brush the surface, his movement slow, deliberate. Beneath the murk, the statue's face stares up, eyes hollow, mouth frozen in a silent scream. The crown rests crooked upon its brow, its metal untouched by time, the gems within pulsing with a light that does not belong to the sun or stars. It calls to him, not in words but in a vibration that resonates with the remnants of his own forgotten majesty. His hand trembles, not with fear, but with recognition. This was no mere king. This was a ruler who had faced the darkness and been broken by it, just as he had. A shadow falls across the water. The Witch King's presence is like a storm front, pressing down, suffocating. Do not touch what you do not understand. His voice grates, the sound like rusted chains dragged over stone. His grip closes around Khamûl's wrist, cold and unyielding. For a heartbeat, neither moves, the marsh holds its breath. Even the dead faces in the water seem to watch, their hollow eyes wide. Kamool does not pull away. The crown's whisper grows louder, threading through his mind like smoke. It speaks of power unshackled, of wills unchained. What if Sauron is not the only master? What if there are older laws, older loyalties? The thought is treason. It is also intoxicating. The Witch King's grip tightens. The ring is our purpose. Not these, echoes. His words are final, but his hesitation betrays him. He, too, feels the pull of the relic. The crown is a threat, not to their mission, but to their unity. For the first time in centuries, Kamool wonders if the Nine are truly one. A gust of wind stirs the reeds, carrying the scent of wet earth and something older, iron, perhaps, or the memory of blood. The statue's crown gleams brighter, as if laughing at their discord. Kamool exhales a soundless breath. He could wrench free. He could claim the relic and let the consequences unravel like a frayed thread. But the moment passes. His hand falls away. The Witch King releases him, and the tension snaps like a bowstring cut. Yet something has shifted. The marshes are no longer just a graveyard. They are an altar, and the crown its unholy sacrament. The wraiths ride on, but the silence between them is no longer empty. It is thick with the weight of unspoken defiance, of a rift that may one day crack the foundations of their brotherhood. The hunt continues, but the shadows have grown teeth, and somewhere, deep in the dark, the forgotten king smiles. The moment Kamool's fingers close around the crown, the marsh erupts. Water boils upward in geysers of black mist, and the dead faces beneath the surface wail in unison, a sound that is not sound, but a vibration that cracks the air like thunder. The crown burns against his palm, its jewels flaring crimson, and for the first time in centuries, Kamool feels, not the hollow ache of his wraith form, but the sear of living flesh, the drum of a heartbeat where there should only be silence. His form flickers, writhing between shadow and a terrible, half-remembered solidity. The ghost of a face, the glint of eyes, the echo of a king who once ruled under the sun. The other Nazgûl reel back, their steeds shrieking and stamping at the water. The Witch King's voice is a whip of fury. Fool, you court annihilation. But Kamool does not hear him. The crown's voice drowns all else, whispering in a tongue older than Mordor, older than the rings, older than the stars themselves. It speaks of thrones built on bones, of oaths sworn in blood, of a power that does not bow to dark lords or doomed quests. It is not Sauron's will that fills him now, but something wilder, something hungrier. The marsh trembles, the water parts, revealing the statue's full form, a towering figure clad in armor pitted with age, its hands clenched around the hilt of a sword, plunged deep into the earth. The crown was only the key. The true relic lies buried beneath. Kamool steps forward, the crown's light pulsing in time with the sudden, terrible certainty in his chest. This was no accident. He was meant to find it. The statue's empty eyes seem to track him, and for a heartbeat, the air smells of incense and iron, of a kingdom that fell before Sauron ever rose. The Witch King moves, swift as a striking serpent, his blade flashing toward Khamûl's throat, but the Easterling is faster. He raises the crown, and the energy within it surges outward in a shockwave of force. The Witch King is thrown back, his form dissipating like smoke in the wind, before reforming yards away, his rage palpable. The other wraiths hesitate, their loyalty to their captain warring with the primal terror of what stirs beneath their feet. Kamool turns back to the statue. The crown's whispers have become a roar, a chant that shakes the roots of the world. He knows what he must do. With a cry that is part triumph, part despair, he wrenches the sword free. The earth splits, the sky bleeds, and far, far away, in the depths of Barad-dûr, the Dark Lord's gaze snaps toward the north, not in fury, but in something far more dangerous. Recognition. The hunt for the ring is forgotten. The marshes are alive now, the water churning with figures clawing their way to the surface, their skeletal hands grasping at the air, as if to drag the living down with them. Kamool stands at the center of the storm, the sword blazing in his grip, the crown's light etching his form in terrible clarity. He is no longer just a servant. He is a claimant, and the shadows of Middle-earth stir in answer. The air crackles with tension as the Nazgûl face each other across the broken marsh, their once unbreakable bond, now a fissure running deep as the roots of the earth. Kamool stands motionless, the ancient sword humming in his grasp, its edge glowing with a light that casts no shadows. The crown upon his brow pulses like a second heartbeat, its rhythm out of sync with the dark will that once bound them all. To his left, 3 wraiths shift uneasily, their allegiance wavering like reeds in the wind. The scent of wet earth and old magic hangs thick between them, heavier than any oath. The Witch King's voice is a blade wrapped in velvet, deceptively calm. Lay down the relic, brother. This is not your path. But the words ring hollow. For the first time since their souls were forged into darkness, Kamool hears the fear beneath them, not fear of Sauron's wrath, fear of something far older. The sword trembles, not with weakness, but with recognition, as if it remembers the hands that once wielded it in an age when the world was younger. One by one, the Nazgûl choose. 3 peel away from the Witch King's side, their steeds stepping cautiously toward Kamool, drawn by the crown's siren song of fractured memory. They say nothing. They need not. Their movement is answer enough. The remaining 5 tighten their ranks around their captain, their hollow eyes burning with betrayal. The Fellowship of the 9, bound for millennia by chains darker than death, now splinters like rotten wood. The land itself seems to recoil. Birds fall silent in distant trees. The marsh waters still, the faces beneath the surface, watching with grotesque fascination. Somewhere in the shadows of Mirkwood, a spider pauses midweb. In the halls of Rivendell, a candle gutters without breeze. The world holds its breath. Kamool turns his back on the Witch King, an act of defiance that would have meant his unmaking mere hours ago. But the crown's power is a shield, its ancient magic humming against the remnants of Sauron's claim. The 3 who follow him do not look back. Their path now leads not east toward Mordor, but north, toward the crumbling ruins of kingdoms, so old even the elves whisper of them only in fragments. The Witch King watches them go, his fury a living thing, coiled tight. Yet beneath the rage, something else flickers, a doubt, for if one wraith can break free, What stops the others? The hunt for the ring falters, its urgency dimmed by this new, terrible question. And as the two groups ride in opposite directions, the wind carries not the sound of hoofbeats, but a low, dissonant note, like a chord struck wrong upon the strings of the world. The oath is broken, the shadows stir, and somewhere, deep in the earth, forgotten things begin to wake. The trees of Mirkwood groan as if in pain, as Kamool and his wraiths pass beneath their gnarled branches, their steeds' hooves silent on the thick carpet of rotting leaves. Dol Guldur looms ahead, its black spires clawing at the twilight sky, the very stones seeming to breathe with a malice older than the fortress itself. The crown on Kamool's brow thrums with restless energy, its jewels casting jagged reflections on the moss-slick walls, not light, but something darker, hungrier. This was once the necromancer's lair, a place where shadows learn to speak, and though Sauron has long abandoned it, the air still hums with the echoes of his experiments, his cruelties, his unfinished work. One of the wraiths, a Dunafil, the quiet, reaches out a gauntleted hand toward the crumbling gate, only to recoil as a whisper coils around her wrist, like a serpent. The voice is sweet, dripping with false comfort. What if you were more than a servant? It murmurs. What if the power here could make you whole again? Her hood tilts, hesitation rippling through her spectral form. The others feel it too, the pull of promises woven into the very stones. The fortress does not offer power. It reflects desire, twisting it into a weapon against the unwary. Kamool dismounts, his boots sinking into the damp earth as he approaches the gate. The crown's pulse quickens, matching the rhythm of some unseen heart buried deep within the fortress. He knows this is a gamble. Dol Guldur is not a tool to be wielded, but a predator waiting to turn on its would-be masters. Yet what choice remains? To return to Sauron's heel now would mean oblivion. To stand alone against Mordor is madness. But here, in this place of fractured magic, there may be a third path. The gate creaks open without touch, as if the fortress itself has been expecting them. The hall beyond is a cathedral of shadows, the ceiling lost in a swirling mist that drips with unseen things. Murmurs rise from the darkness, layering over one another, some in tongues long dead, others in the voices of the wraiths themselves, echoing their deepest regrets, their most secret shames. The crown flares, burning away the whispers nearest to Kamool, but the effort sends cracks, spider webbing across his form. The relics of Angmar and the Dead Marshes were tests. This is the trial. A Dunafil steps forward, her voice hollow but resolute. We cannot stay here. The stones drink ambition and spit out slaves. Yet even as she speaks, her hand drifts toward a shattered mirror leaning against the wall. In its fragments, her reflection is not a wraith, but a woman proud, unbroken, bathed in sunlight. The illusion is so vivid her breath catches. The mirror's edge bites into her palm, drawing black ichor, but she does not let go. Khamûl watches his followers fray. One kneels before a rusted throne, murmuring to phantoms. Another claws at the walls, as if digging for something buried alive. The crown's power is a flame in the wind here, flickering against the necromancer's legacy. He could force them onward, deeper into the fortress, to whatever cursed wellspring of power lies at its heart. Or he could shatter the illusions, rally them to flee, but to where? The world beyond these walls offers no sanctuary, a new whisper cuts through the chaos, too clear, too focused to be an echo. You are not the first to wear the crown, it says, only the latest to dream of breaking chains. The voice comes from nowhere and everywhere, the words slithering into Kamool's mind like smoke. The revelation strikes like a blade. Others have stood where he stands, wielded the relics, dared to defy the Dark Lord. Their bones are likely dust in these very halls. The crown's power is not a gift, it is a snare, and Dol Guldur is the teeth waiting to snap shut. The realization comes too late. The gate slams behind them with a finality that shakes the earth. The whispers rise to a chorus, no longer tempting, but triumphant. The fortress has them now, and the true test begins, not of strength, but of will. Can wraiths starved of hope resist a feast of lies? Or will the shadows of Dol Guldur claim 4 more souls for its endless, hungry dark? Minas Morgul crouches beneath a sickly green moon, its pale towers pulsing like the veins of a dying beast. The Witch King paces the battlements, his cloak rippling as if stirred by something deeper than wind. Below, the loyal Nazgûl gather in the courtyard, their steeds stamping impatiently. The air reeks of decay and damp metal, of armor left too long in bloodied mud. News of Kamool's betrayal has spread like a poison, seeping into the cracks of their brotherhood, turning whispers into snarls. Yet the Witch King does not unleash his fury, not yet. His gauntleted fingers tighten around the hilt of his sword, the metal groaning in protest. To strike down a fellow ringwraith would be to wound their master's hand, to blunt a weapon when Sauron needs every edge against the rising light of Gondor. But to let defiance fester, unthinkable, the crown's power gnaws at the edges of his thoughts, its existence a taunt, a challenge to the order that has held the Nine together for millennia. He cannot allow it to remain in the hands of a traitor. A rasping voice breaks the silence. Hormwraith of Dire, the youngest of the Nine, his tone edged with something dangerously close to curiosity. Do we ride north, then, to drag him back in chains? The question hangs in the air, thick with unspoken tension. The Witch King turns slowly, his hollow gaze boring into Hormwraith until the younger wraith shrinks back. There will be no chains, no grand hunt, only a lesson, delivered in the quietest, cruelest way possible. The plan takes shape in the Witch King's mind, like a spider spinning its web. The crown cannot be destroyed, not by their hands at least, but it can be repurposed. Kamool clings to it because it offers a shred of what he once was, a king, a man, something more than a slave to darkness. Very well, let him remember so deeply that the weight of his past crushes whatever rebellion still flickers in his shriveled spirit. A flick of the Witch King's wrist sends the Nazgûl scrambling to their mounts. The gates of Minas Morgul Creek open, revealing the winding path through the mountains of shadow. But they will not take the road north, not yet. First, they ride east, toward the ashen plains of Mordor. There are things in the vaults of Barad-dûr, relics older than the rings, tools that can pry open even a wraith's buried memories. Let Kamool wear his crown a little longer. Let him dream of freedom. The Witch King's lips peel back in a soundless snarl. Soon, very soon, he will show his wayward brother the true meaning of regret. The moon bleeds green light over the fortress as the Nazgûl vanish into the night, their forms melting into the gloom. Behind them, the very stones of Minas Morgul seem to shudder, as if the fortress itself knows what comes next. War is coming, yes, but first, a reckoning, and the shadows are eager to bear witness. The wasteland of Dagorlad shudders beneath the weight of their fury, the cracked earth splitting further as spectral steel meets, cursed relic in a clash that sends shockwaves rippling through the air. The blood-red moon hangs low, swollen, and pulsing like an open wound, casting the battlefield in a light that turns sand to rust and shadows to blood. Kamool moves with a speed no living thing could match, the crown's power twisting his form into something sharper, hungrier each strike of his blade carving arcs of sickly green fire through the darkness. Yet for every blow he lands, the Witch King counters with the precision of a predator who has spent centuries honing his cruelty. Their swords lock, and the scream of metal on metal becomes a chorus of tormented voices, as if every soul they've ever claimed cries out in unison. Adunafil and the other turncoat wraiths hover at the edges of the fray, their forms flickering like candle flames in a gale. They do not intervene. This is not their battle. The crown's whispers have shown them fragments of a past. They can scarcely remember cities of gold, banners snapping in the wind, the weight of crowns that were not gifts but chains. To step between Khamûl and the Witch King now would be to choose a side, and choice is a luxury the Nine have never known. Their hesitation is a wound in itself, a crack in the foundation of what they once were. The Witch King's counterattack comes not with steel, but with memory. A flick of his wrist, and the air between them shimmers like heat haze, revealing glimpses of a sunlit throne room, of a man, not a wraith, kneeling before Sauron's emissary, accepting a ring with hands that tremble not from fear, but hope. Kamool recoils as if scalded. The crown on his brow flares, its light dimming for the first time, its voice faltering under the weight of a truth it cannot erase. He was not taken. He surrendered. The vision shifts, showing the years that followed, the slow unraveling of his kingdom, the betrayal of his own kin, the moment he first drew breath as a wraith and knew, with terrible clarity, that there would be no going back. The Witch King presses his advantage, his voice a razor in the dark. You wear the crown of a dead king, brother, but you are no ruler. You are a dog who forgot his leash. The words land with the force of a hammer, and for a heartbeat, Khamûl's grip on the sword wavers. The wasteland seems to tilt, the very ground unstable beneath him. The other Nazgûl feel it too, the pull of the old bonds, the seductive simplicity of obedience. Then the crown's voice returns, not as a whisper, but a roar. It does not offer lies to comfort him. It offers rage. The visions splinter as Khamûl surges forward, his blade carving a path through the Witch King's defenses, drawing first blood, a splash of black mist that writhes like living smoke before dissolving into the night. The strike is a revelation. The Witch King can be hurt. He can be challenged. And if he can fall, what then of Sauron's dominion? The remaining loyalists descend like vultures, their swords aimed not at Kamool, but at the crown. They do not seek to kill him, they seek to unmake his defiance. Adunafil moves at last, intercepting one with a slash that sends the wraith spiraling into the dust. The battle is no longer between two brothers, but between the past and a future that dares to exist. The wastes of Dagorlad, already scarred by ancient wars, bear witness to a new kind of rupture, one that may crack the foundations of darkness itself. The moon watches red and unblinking as the duel rages on, neither side yielding, neither side able to imagine what comes next. The crown's light gutters like a dying candle as Kamool staggers, his blade slipping from fingers that no longer remember how to grip. The visions come faster now, not memories, but cruel imitations, stitched together by the relic's desperate magic. A feast hall thick with laughter, the faces of his children, were their eyes ever that shade of amber, the scent of apricot blossoms from gardens swallowed by dunes centuries ago. Each image is a hook in his soul, dragging him deeper into the illusion. The crown does not lie. It reminds, and remembrance for a wraith is a slower kind of unmaking. The Witch King strikes in the moment Kamool's knees buckle. His sword does not pierce flesh. It shears through the crown itself with a sound like breaking bone. The relic fractures, its jewels exploding into shards of black flame that hang suspended in the air for a heartbeat before detonating outward in a wave of force. The blast flings the Nazgûl like leaves in a storm, their forms unraveling at the edges, their screams lost in the roar of released magic. Kamool hits the ground as a man might hard, breathless, his body a map of pain he hasn't felt in 1,000 years. The wasteland swims around him, the sky is wrong, stars pulse where they should stand still, and the moon bleeds tendrils of smoke that curl toward the earth like seeking hands. Somewhere in the chaos, a Dunafel calls his name, but her voice is distant, warped, as if heard through water. The crown's fragments smolder where they've fallen, each one whispering its own jagged truth. One shows him the day he accepted the ring, not in terror, but in triumph, believing it a gift to secure his dynasty. Another burns with the faces of those he sacrificed to keep it. The last, largest shard pulses with a scene that stops his breath. The Witch King, kneeling not to Sauron, but to a figure cloaked in deeper shadow, offering Kamool's name like a coin to be spent. The revelation is a blade to the gut. This was never just a hunt for the ring. This was a culling. The Witch King knew the crown would call to him, knew it would stir the embers of rebellion. Because rebellion, in the end, is just another leash. To defy is to play your part. Dagorlad's wind shifts, carrying the stench of charred metal and something older, the ozone tang of raw power. The other Nazgûl stir, their forms flickering as they struggle to coalesce. The blast has hollowed them, left them frail as smoke, but the Witch King rises first, his outline sharpening against the bleeding sky. He does not gloat. He does not speak. He simply turns his palm upward, and the crown's largest shard lifts from the dust to hover above his hand, still whispering. Kamool understands then. The crown was never his salvation. It was always the Witch King's instrument, and the real battle hasn't even begun. The Witch King's blade hovers at Kamool's throat, its edge humming with a promise sharper than death. Yet the killing stroke does not come. Instead, the air thickens with something worse than violent silence. A choice. Kneel, the Witch King commands, his voice stripped of triumph, hollow as a tomb. Or be unmade. The words hang between them, heavier than the crown's shattered remnants scattered across the wasteland. For a heartbeat, Kamool hesitates. The void yawns before him, not as an end, but as an eternity of nothingness, of being forgotten even by the darkness that birthed him. His knees strike the cracked earth with a sound like crumbling stone. The submission is not graceful, it is not noble, it is the collapse of a mountain worn to dust by time. Around them, the other Nazgûl exhale, some in relief, others in disappointment. The fracture is mended, but the glue is brittle. Adunafil's hooded gaze lingers on Khamûl, a moment too long, her fingers twitching toward the hilt of her own sword before she stills them. The Witch King sees it. He always sees. A gauntleted hand descends not to strike, but to clasp Khamûl's shoulder in a mockery of fellowship. The touch burns, not with heat, but with the sear of Sauron's will reforging the broken links of their bond. Khamûl's form shudders, the last embers of rebellion snuffed out beneath that grip. The crown's whispers are gone, but their echoes remain. A phantom itch in his spirit, a shadow where the light of defiance once flickered. The nine are whole again, on the surface. As they rise as one, the wind carries the stench of charred metal and something subtler, the scent of a wound left to fester. The Witch King turns his back, already striding toward the east, where Mordor's fires stain the horizon. The others follow, their steps falling into the old, familiar rhythm. But Khamûl lingers, just for a breath, his fingers brushing a shard of the crown, half buried in the dust. It does not speak to him now. It does not need to. The lesson is etched into his bones. Some chains cannot be broken, only tightened, and the Witch King holds the key. The hunt for the ring resumes, but the night feels different. The shadows no longer whisper of power, they whisper of patience. The air in Mordor is thick with the stench of sulfur and burning flesh, the sky choked by clouds that never part. The Nazgûl stand motionless before the towering gates of Barad-dûr, their forms dwarfed by the gargantuan structure, its obsidian walls pulsing with an eerie inner light. The ground trembles beneath them, not from the volcanic fires below, but from the weight of a presence that needs no introduction. Sauron's voice crashes into their minds like a tidal wave, a soundless roar that scrapes against the remnants of their souls. You falter. The words are not spoken, but carved into their very essence, each syllable a brand of fire. You forget your purpose. The Witch King does not flinch. He steps forward, his cloak billowing in the scorching wind, and bows his head not in submission, but in acknowledgement. The fault is mine, he answers, his voice steady despite the pressure bearing down on them. The crown's power was underestimated. It will not happen again. The lie is smooth, effortless. He does not glance at Kamool, but the Easterling feels the unspoken debt settle between them like a noose. The Witch King could have let Sauron's wrath fall upon him, could have watched as his brother's spirit shattered under the weight of their master's displeasure. Instead, he shoulders the blame, and that, Kamool realizes with a chill, is far more dangerous than any punishment. A silence stretches, thick and suffocating. The other Nazgûl remain statues, their breathless forms taut with anticipation. Then, like a storm breaking, the pressure lifts. Sauron's response is not forgiveness, it is a command. Prove yourselves. The words slither through their minds, leaving trails of ice. Bring me the ring. The gates of Barad-dûr groan open, revealing not the fiery pits they expected, but a path winding into the heart of Mordor's wasteland. A test. The Nazgûl exchange no words as they mount their steeds, but the tension between them is a living thing. The Witch King leads, his posture rigid with purpose. Kamool follows, his thoughts a whirlwind. The crown's whispers may be silenced, but its lessons linger. The Witch King protected him, yes, but not out of loyalty. Out of strategy, a fractured Nazgûl is a weakened Nazgûl, and Sauron's war cannot afford weakness. As they ride, the land around them shifts, the very earth writhing as if sensing their unease. Towers of black rock claw at the sky, their surfaces etched with runes that glow faintly in the gloom. The air hums with energy, a constant reminder of the eye's gaze. There will be no more mistakes, no more defiance. The hunt for the ring is no longer just a mission, it is their redemption. Yet as Kamool stares at the Witch King's back, a single thought coils in the depths of his mind. Loyalty, once questioned, is never truly restored. And the Dark Lord is not the only one who remembers betrayal. The Black Gate rises from the ashen plains like the clenched fist of a buried titan, its iron teeth gnashing against a sky-stained blood, red by the fires of Mount Doom. The Nazgûl gather beneath its shadow, their forms flickering like candle flames in the sulphurous wind, the weight of their failures pressing heavier than the armor they no longer wear. The air thrums with the distant clang of orcish forges, the screech of whetstones on blades, the drumbeat of war preparing itself. Yet amidst the chaos, the Witch King stands unmoved, his presence a lodestone holding the others in orbit. His silence speaks louder than any command. This is not the end. It is the beginning of the reckoning. A Dunawful drifts closer to Kamool, her voice a threadbare whisper. The eye does not forgive. The words are not a warning, but an acknowledgement. The Dark Lord's displeasure is a living thing, a pressure in their hollow chests, a gnawing itch in their shriveled spirits. Yet the Witch King does not cower. He turns his hooded gaze toward the gate, where legions of orcs scuttle like insects, their loyalty bought with fear and the promise of slaughter. The eye forgets nothing, he replies, his tone stripped of emotion, but it values victory more than vengeance. The others shift, their movements restless. The Crown's rebellion, the fractures in their brotherhood, the whispers of defiance, all of it is ash now, scattered by the winds of Mordor. What remains is purpose, honed sharper than any blade. The ring is still out there, a flicker of gold in the wilderness, and with it, the power to remake the world in fire. The Witch King's gauntleted hand curls into a fist. We hunt anew, he declares, and the words are less in order than a vow. Beyond the gate, the land stretches toward Gondor, its white towers a taunt on the horizon. The Nazgûl know what comes next, not just a hunt, but a war that will drown cities in shadow, that will peel back the skin of the world and show the rot beneath. And yet, for the first time in centuries, there is no certainty in their steps. The Crown's whispers may be silenced, but the cracks it left behind are still there, hidden beneath the surface like fault lines. Kamool watches the Witch King, the way his cloak billows in the scorching wind, the way his presence commands even the silence. There is no forgiveness between them. Only necessity. The ring must be taken, Middle-earth must fall, and if they must wear their chains a little longer to see it done, so be it. The black gate groans open, its rusted hinges screaming. The Nazgûl mount their steeds, their forms melting into the gloom as they ride forth, not as conquerors, but as instruments of a will greater than their own. The land recoils at their passing. Somewhere, far away, a hobbit shivers in the dark, unaware that the shadows have just grown teeth. The hunt begins anew. And this time, there will be no hesitation. The wind howls through the jagged peaks of the Juath, carrying the scent of fear from distant villages as the Nazgûl ride forth. Their black steeds leave no prints on the scorched earth, their passage marked only by the sudden silence of birds, the uneasy stirring of livestock in their pens. The mission is clear-cut through the heartlands of Gondor, tear open every hidden corner until the ring-bearer is flushed from the shadows. Yet beneath the surface of their unity, something festers. A Dunaful's steed falters as they cross the ruined bridge of Osgiliath, its hooves skittering on moss-slick stone. The others do not pause. They never pause. But she glances back, her hollow gaze lingering on the crumbling towers where men once whispered of resistance. The memory of the crowns, shattered light flickers in her mind, not as rebellion, but as revelation. What if their chains are not unbreakable? What if obedience is just another kind of tomb? The Witch King feels the shift like a crack in his own armor. He does not speak of it. Instead, he tightens his grip on the reins, his voice slicing through the fog of doubt. The Shire, he commands, the word a blade drawn across the throats of hesitation. The halflings shelter him. We will rip their burrows apart stone by stone. The order is absolute, yet for the first time in centuries, it lands with a hollowness that even the loyalists notice. Ormuraith rides at the rear, his fingers twitching toward the dagger at his belt, not to strike, but to feel its edge. The blade is dull. Wraiths need no sharpened steel to kill. But the gesture is telling. He remembers the marshes, remembers the crown's voice, how it made Kamool seem, for a moment almost alive. The Witch King's will is iron, but iron rusts. And the scent of corrosion is thick tonight. Villages blur beneath them, their lanterns snuffing out one by one as the Nazgûl pass. Children wake screaming, their mothers clutching them tight, praying to gods who fled these lands long ago. The terror is familiar, a tool wielded with precision. But terror, they are learning, cuts both ways. For the first time, the Wraiths taste the fear they inspire not in their victims, but in themselves. What happens when the Dark Lord no longer needs hunters? What happens to tools when the war is won? The road ahead splits, one path winding toward the Shire's soft hills, the other into the mist-shrouded vales where forgotten things stir. The Witch King hesitates, not from uncertainty, but from something far more dangerous: calculation. He sees the fractures, feels the weight of eyes upon his back. Loyalty, he realizes, is not a flame to be rekindled, but a weapon to be aimed, and the hand on the hilt is never truly still. Beneath the waning moon, the nine ride on. But the night no longer moves with them. It watches, it waits, and in the silence between hoofbeats, the whispers begin again. The night in Bree is thick with the stench of cheap ale and damp wool, the air choked by the murmur of drunken men and the creak of swaying lanterns. The Nazgûl move like smoke through the crowded streets, their black cloaks disguising the emptiness beneath, their presence bending the light just enough to make the eye slide away. The Witch King stands at the edge of the prancing pony's courtyard, his unseen gaze scraping over every face, every shadow. The ring is here. He can taste its poison on the wind, a metallic tang that sets his teeth on edge. But the scent is maddeningly faint, diluted, hidden, as if wrapped in layers of wool and hobbit stubbornness. Inside the inn, laughter erupts as a halfling too loud, too bright staggers onto a table, his voice slurring through a ridiculous song. The other patrons roar approval, But the Nazgûl do not hear mirth. They hear distraction, a weapon. The Witch King's fingers twitch. These creatures are beneath notice, yet one of them carries the fate of Middle-earth in their pocket. The irony is a blade twisted in his gut. A whisper coils through the ranks of the Nine. They are here. The words are not spoken aloud, but felt, like the first twinge of a storm's approach. The hobbits, 4 of them, if the rumors are true, huddle in a corner, their eyes too wide, their laughter too forced. One clutches at something beneath his waistcoat. The Witch King's hunger sharpens. He steps forward, and the inn's door slams shut in his face, not by hand, but by some stubborn twist of fate. The wood groans, the iron hinges trembling as if gripped by an unseen force. Frustration bleeds through the Nazgûl like ink in water. They could tear the building apart, could reduce these sniveling mortals to red smears on the floorboards. But the Dark Lord's command is clear. The ring must be taken quietly, before the world knows to fight for it. So they wait, their wrath a living thing, coiled tight. Outside, the wind picks up, howling through the alleys like a chorus of lost souls. The hobbits will flee. They must, and when they do, the Nine will be waiting. The Witch King turns his face to the sky, where the moon hangs like a yellowed fang. Time slips through their fingers like sand, each grain a whisper of failure. But the hunt is not over. It has only just begun, and Bree will learn, too late, that some shadows cannot be outrun. The night air shrieks with the thunder of hooves as the Nazgûl tear through the wilderness, their steeds flecked with foam, their cloaks streaming like banners of shadow. The hobbits are close now, so close the Witch King can almost taste the ring's metallic tang on the wind, a siren call cutting through the stench of sweat and fear. Leaves whip past like fleeing spirits as they descend into the valley, the Bruinen's rushing waters glinting ahead like a slash of silver in the moonlight. Frodo's pony stumbles, its breath ragged, its sides heaving. The Wraiths do not tire, they do not falter. They are the hunger that cannot be sated, the nightmare that outruns the dawn. The ford yawns before them, deceptively shallow, its stones worn smooth by centuries of currents. The Witch King reins in his steed at the water's edge, his triumph a living thing, coiled tight in his hollow chest. The halfling is trapped, swaying in the saddle, his face pale as milk. One hand clutches at his chest where the ring hangs heavy, its whisper a taunt. The Witch King dismounts, his boots sinking into the mud as he advances. "Give it to me," he rasps, the words less a demand than an inevitability. The other wraiths fan out behind him, their swords unsheathed, their silence more terrible than any battle cry. Then the world fractures. The river, so placid moments ago, rears up like a living beast. The waters do not rise, they explode, a wall of white fury, crashing down with the force of 1,000 storms. The Witch King has no breath to scream as the deluge engulfs him, his form dissolving like ink in the torrent. The others twist in the current, their armor screeching, their steeds swept away like twigs. For the first time in centuries, the Nazgûl know helplessness. The river does not drown them. It unmakes them, tearing at the dark magic that binds their spirits, scattering them like ashes on the wind. Yet darkness cannot be so easily destroyed. As the waters recede, dragging shattered cloaks and broken blades downstream, something lingers in the air. A vibration, a whisper of malice clinging to the stones. The Nazgûl are gone, but not gone. Their bodies are broken, yes, their steeds lost, but the will that drives them is older than rivers, older than elves, older than the very stones of Middle-earth. Somewhere in the depths of Mordor, a shadow stirs. The hunt is not over. It has only just begun, and the ring, ever patient, waits. The air in Mordor is thick with the reek of molten rock and charred flesh, the very earth trembling beneath the weight of what stirs within the depths of Mount Doom. The Nazgûl rise from the ash-choked fissures, their forms reforged in the mountain's hellfire, blackened armor gleaming like obsidian under the blood-red sky. They are no longer just wraiths, they are vengeance given shape, their very presence warping the air with a hum that sets teeth on edge. The Witch King stands at the head of their wretched procession, his crownless helm turned toward the distant white towers of Minas Tirith. There is no hesitation in him now, no flicker of doubt, only purpose. Sauron's will pulses through them like a second heartbeat, the Dark Lord's voice a serpent coiled in their minds. This is the hour. The words are not spoken but felt, a command etched into their bones. The armies of Mordor churn below, orcs in their thousands, trolls hefting crude blades, siege engines groaning under their own weight. The Nazgûl do not walk among them. They glide above, their tattered cloaks stirring the sulphurous wind, their screams cutting through the clamor like knives. Those screams are more than sound. They are a weapon, a herald of the terror to come. The men of Gondor will hear them in their dreams long before the first arrows darken the sky. The Witch King raises his sword, and the host falls silent. Even the mountain seems to hold its breath. No retreat, he intones, the words slithering into the ears of every creature gathered. No mercy. It is not a rallying cry. It is a death sentence for Gondor, or for themselves. The Nazgûl know the stakes. If the ring is not reclaimed, if the White City does not fall, their torment will stretch into eternity, their souls bound to a master who rewards failure with agony beyond mortal comprehension. Then, with a sound like 1,000 thunderclaps, the gates of Mordor burst open. The earth shakes as the legions surge forward, a tide of claws and fangs and rusted steel. The Nazgûl take to the skies, their winged beasts shrieking as they carve through the smoke-heavy clouds. Below, fires bloom like poison flowers, swallowing villages whole. The Witch King does not look back. There is no need. The path ahead is written in flame and blood, and he will walk it until the world breaks, or he does. Somewhere in the chaos, a horn rings out clear, defiant, the last gasp of a kingdom, refusing to die quietly. The Witch King smiles, though he has no lips to curve. Let them blow their horns, let them raise their swords. Dawn will not come for Gondor, not this day, not ever again. The sky blackens, the shadows lengthen. And the nine ride forth, their hunger finally unleashed. The ground shakes as Mount Doom erupts, rivers of fire, painting the sky in streaks of crimson and gold. The Nazgûl's shrieks pierce the chaos, not in triumph, but in agony, a sound that tears through the very fabric of the air. High above, the Witch King's winged beast spirals, its wings crumbling to ash as the ring's power unravels. For a moment, he hangs suspended in the sulphurous wind, his form flickering between shadow and something almost human. Then, like a candle snuffed by a breath, he is gone. Not with a roar, but a sigh. The others follow, their spectral bodies dissolving into the scorched wind, their cries fading into echoes that even the rocks refuse to remember. Barad-dûr's towers groan, their foundations cracking like old bones. The Dark Lord's will, which once held the Nazgûl bound through centuries of torment, snaps like a frayed thread. What happens to a shadow when the light that cast it vanishes? The answer whispers through the battlefield as the nine come undone, not in battle, not by blade, but by the simple, terrible act of a hobbit's fingers letting go. Their armor collapses into dust, their cloaks flutter empty to the ground. The wind carries the last traces of them eastward, over the ashen plains, scattering what remains of kings and warriors and slaves across the land they once helped devour. In the silence that follows, the air feels lighter, as if the world itself has exhaled. The men of Gondor cheer, but their voices are distant, meaningless. The Nazgûl's end is not a defeat, it is a release. Centuries of servitude, of hunger without sustenance, of existing but never living, finally cease. Perhaps in those final seconds, some fragment of who they once were resurfaces. A memory of sunlight on a face long forgotten, the weight of a crown that once meant more than a master's leash. Or perhaps there is only relief, as the last chains shatter and the darkness they embodied swallows them whole. The stories will say they were destroyed, but destruction implies something remains to mourn. The Nazgûl leave no graves, no markers, no legacy but fear. Even their names are lost, erased by time and the shadow they served. Only the wind remembers, and even then, just for a moment, a faint sigh through the ruins of Mordor, a whisper that might be regret, or gratitude, or nothing at all. The age of men dawns bright and unburdened. Somewhere, far beneath the earth, the last ember of a forgotten crown cools into oblivion.